Hey, what up, YouTube? It's your boy, Micah's brother. I can't do it. Welcome to Minecraft. Welcome to the channel. I'm Adamant13, and today we are going to brood after the devastating defeat of last episode where we mixed up the item machine frame and the machine casing, which halted all of our progress on agricraft. We, in a fit of rage, went out and slaughtered a bunch of cows. But now that we've cooled off, our evil character has decided that we want to climb the top of this mountain, and we're just going to brood and meditate. But before we can do that, we need to make a knapsack, because any good journey into the center of your heart requires both a sleeping bag and a knapsack. Fortunately, the only missing component is the leather, which we have already collected. And we can grab this knapsack. Perfect. Quest book, 100%. Perfect, no reward. The way that you use the knapsack is if we click this diamond tab from Tinker's Construct, we put that in this slot here. Let me get out and get back in. It refreshes. Now we'll see we've got a third tab, which we can place items in it. Literally doubles our inventory, which is awesome. We'll put the rest of our stuff here. Okay, let's check the clipboard. Check off knapsack. Now all we have to do is brood and meditate on our next steps. Now for me, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get up this mountain, but for you guys watching, I think it should be a pretty simple jump. On the top of the mountain, it looks like we have some sort of Thaumcraft thing, and if I know any better, there's going to be a wisp spawner up here. So these, I don't know, totems, whatever, they like to spawn at high Y levels, so particularly on top of mountains or in highlands. So let's check it out, see what we got. Okay, steel sword. You'll notice that this steel sword, it only has durability of 1. So we can't actually use it as a weapon, it's just for crafting. There's a couple of machines that might require like a steel sword. We got nether wart, perfect. Music disc, steel helmet, good. Ooh, ender lily seeds. We can grow those and start on a more permanent ender farm, which I don't have a better way to do yet. 10 ingots, mundane, lengthening catalyst. I don't know what that is. Dezel's marshmallows. Holy cow, look at the food on this guy. Alright, that's a hearty feast. We'll grab those. We'll get some dark steel. We'll take these dimlets. Mega rubber saplings. Might have to take that. Sweet. The cool thing is, there's another one right over there. So let's take a gander. And I'm going to slaughter more cows. Woo! Hat. I don't care about killing things that are far away from my base because I'm not going to bring them back. Oh, shoot. Oh, boy. It's an invisible ghost. No, I think that was a spider. It was like a ghost spider. You can kind of see... Wow, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, this is just... I think there's an aura node right there. You can just barely see it, making this whole area dark. Oh, I was climbing the vines. I just couldn't figure out what's going on. You can kind of see where the wisp spawner down here, the particles, are eking out, so it's best just to completely light up the area. Let's see what we got here. Ooh, more armor. Perfect. Steel chestplate and boots. Perfect. We don't have that yet. Saddle. Nice. Can't make that any other way. Take the ender pearl, iridium shard, music disc, but it's broken? Interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. More ender lily seeds. Perfect. Take the copper and an average power catalyst. Cool. Should I also take the chest? Might as well. Now, if we come over here, we should be able to see our base. If I can navigate this place correctly. This dark area is another It's another one of those totems from Thaumcraft where it darkens the whole square, but it's funny because it happens on the side of the mountain, and so the top half is all dark as well. So there's the totem. So this square, or this chunk, gets dark. But there's home sweet home. Here we are, gonna brood. Alright, we did that. Cool. Now we need to meditate on next steps. Okay, I figured it out. I think we know what we're gonna do. We're gonna work on animal farms. Sweet. Alright, time to get back. Do you think I can make that jump? No, I don't think I can make that jump either. Shame on you for trying to get me to do. Alright, I'll see you guys at the bottom. Back on the ground, I just want to come over here and take a look at what our farm is right now. We have been doing some breeding, just with either the wheat or the seeds, of both the sheep and the cows, and might as well be shearing while I talk. Ragnarok had initially brought the animals over here, and this is kind of a mess and super annoying to do. I think that's everybody. The farm has not really gotten any love. I had tried out something real basic where you just put hoppers down here and then they lead into chests, and so then the hoppers automatically collect the things that the mobs drop. By the way, I got a mod called Pig Manure that literally makes pigs drop manure, because otherwise pigs are pretty irrelevant. You can get everything else, meat, from either your cows or your sheep even. And so what you can do with the manure is you can bake it like clay and it'll turn into bricks. So that way it's like a renewable source of bricks. You don't have to use your clay. And I was doing the same thing with the sheep, with the hoppers, trying to go in here, and I guess I'm collecting eggs, but this is kind of lame. I was also using these jaded ladders from Open Blocks, which is really cool because, they work as both a trapdoor and as a ladder. Super nice. So I think what we're going to do is I have made a copy of this server world, and I'm going to log out of the real server and head into the creative mode on that test server and see what I can come up with. So we're here in our creative testing copy, and you can see I've got prototype versions of the house and the forge, but right now I want to concentrate on the farms that I've been working at. And we're going to start with sheep, because I think they are the most complicated, and for a couple of reasons. So, one, we're not killing them, and two, they're not dropping anything to help replenish them, like eggs with chickens, where you can get more chickens out of the eggs. In our case, we're actually just shearing them. And there's a couple of interesting mechanics with shearing. The first one is a sheep that has been shorn needs a grass block underneath them to get their wool back. What they'll do is they'll eat the grass. It'll turn into just this dirt. You can see there's dirt patches kind of throughout here where the grass will eat. And only once they've done that will they get their wool back. So you can't just make like a sheep farm that's, just in a glass square or something. Now, let me show you what I've got going on right here. It's dirt fences. There's a layer down here that's one lower than the rest of it. And if I hit this lever, I've got sticky pistons underneath that lowers it even further. So it's 2 blocks down, and there's also a water source block that pushes everything into a chest over there, hopper into a chest. But more importantly, makes the sheep bounce. Now, initially, if you're just running around here and you're trying to shear all of the sheep, it's hard to get these sheep over here because there's this shorn sheep in the way. The hitbox is blocking me. However, when the sheep are bouncing, each sheep will be at the apex of a jump at a different time. And so I just have to hold right click and then pan left and right, and I'll shear all of these sheep very quickly. Now, once you understand that, let me hit this button, which activates all of those dispensers, which have water buckets in them. And the idea was that the water would push all of the sheep into this channel right here. But as you can see, it doesn't really work. And it still requires me to, every 300 seconds, come back over here, hit all these buttons, and then pan over here with my shears. So I thought to myself, whoops, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And ideally, you would turn these both things off, and then the sheep would be able to come back here, get into the grass, and replenish themselves. But it was still just too much work. So I looked up online to see what are some different ways that I can have sheep shorn automatically. And Britannia's got a drum of the gathering, I think it's called, where you got to give it mana, and then it will, in an area, just shear sheep, which is really cool. But we are nowhere near there in our playthrough, so what we have instead is this autonomous activator from Thermal Expansion. And this is a really cool block because it acts like a fake player. If I right click into it, you'll see that I've given it shears in its inventory, and then you tell it whether to like left click or right click, whether or not you're sneaking. So you're like, do you want to shift left click or shift right click on something? In our case, no. To shear, you just hold right click or click right click, and it will, once powered, continuously shear sheep. And so I've got an example of that right here. Here's my autonomous activator, and it's a little bit difficult to tell, but you can see where it's working right here. And it's got like a 2-block radius. Let me actually give this some shears. You'll see this in action. It does need to be powered. It uses, it's just like 1 RF a tick or something. So I just have a redstone energy cell here because I'm in creative powering it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but this should be working. Oh, no, I've got it set to first slot only. Let me just round robin use. Okay, so now it shears the sheep in front of it. The next problem that I had was once the sheep gets shorn, it doesn't move. It normally will just stand there, and then the other sheep will occupy the other spots, and this thing doesn't get around. And I was like, well, how can I move the autonomous activator to get everything? And then I thought, there's a better way. I can move the sheep instead. Let's keep the autonomous activator right here. And the first idea I had was with water. Pretty simple. I've got a source block right here. Water will not travel over the pressure plates, so the pressure plates help keep the water in line. And then you can see I've got another source block here, and then the problem with that is all of these pressure plates and the water themselves, the sheep cannot eat the grass under them, and so it's wasted space. And a sheep farm, one of the things that makes it efficient is the more grass it has, the better, or the more quickly that they'll replenish themselves. And so I thought, what if I put a source block out here? And water is interesting in that, or any liquid, is that it will prioritize flowing down a block instead of flowing out like it normally does. And so I was like, okay, what if we did that whole thing? And that's the genesis of this idea. You'll notice that I still have to use a couple of trapdoors, because otherwise this source block, instead of flowing here where I want it, would just instead try to flow into this block. But if you block it off these first two, then it's fine. And by the time I had built this, I realized there's something even simpler than that. And you may or may not be familiar with them, but they are the slime channels from Tinker's Construct. And they work in a very similar way to flowing water, but they only occupy the space that you place them in. So I've placed all 8 of these blocks, and it's got some weird texture issues, I think because of my resource pack. But the idea was, why don't I make more or less of a donut shape? And you can see I've got my autonomous activator here, powered again by the redstone energy cell. And the reason that I don't have it slime channel on every single block is because the sheep, again, weren't able to eat the grass underneath. And so I tried to make it kind of every other and just hope the sheep would push the sheep along in kind of just this circular motion. And it kind of worked, but it still ended up just not being near enough grass blocks to replenish all the sheep. And so we're going to move on to this, and this is my own design. And I think this is what we're going to go with in the actual server. Now, I want to preface it by saying this is not the most efficient sheep farm that is out there or anything like that. I was not designing it for that case. I am simply trying to make it completely automatic. So I've got my autonomous activator right here. It's shearing anything that comes near it. And let me put some shears in there. Again, just powered by this. I'll figure out power later. And what I needed to do was be able to make this completely automatic with blocks that I have access to right now. In this case, this farm is powered by these fans. Now, fans are from open blocks. They're pretty cheap to make, and what they will do is push entities about 6 or 7 blocks, and the further away from the fan, the less powerful it gets. And so you can see I've just got it as kind of part of the fence network, and I've got this next fan will blow it here, and then these fans will blow these guys here, and then you can see this fan blows them this way, and so you get this general circular motion, and you can see most of the sheep have already been shorn by the autonomous activator. I will say it's not 100% automatic because you still do every once in a while need to come back and refill this with shears because it still does use the durability on the shears. But you should see these guys get snipped right there. The nice thing is I don't need a ton of hoppers because if we were to follow this wool block, or I don't know, let me throw a pressure plate down. The fans will also move items, and then the items will get pushed into here, and then they just go straight into the hopper right there. And then those items come out here in this chest. So here's my pressure plate back. And so that works out really well. And then you can do different colored sheep or whatnot. Normally, the fans would also be pushing the player, but because I'm in creative mode, I don't count as an entity, I guess. And then, of course, we've got a sound muffler from extra utilities, and all that does is makes it so these guys are much more quiet. Otherwise, they are super annoying loud, as usual. But let's move on to my cow farm. And again, this is not the most efficient cow farm that you're going to see on YouTube, but I have made it with the mods that I have and with the materials that I currently have access to in our current playthrough. Now, one of the things that I always prioritize in my farm builds is readability. So you'll see that this thing, it's got a flat back and flat sides and then just like a glass front. So everything you're seeing right here, this is everything. So let me do a little bit of explaining because cows have some of their own unique properties. I've got a bunch of source cows right here, and they are staying here because they need to occupy at least 2 blocks tall. Adult cows, they can't move anywhere else. The idea is these are my source cows, and I'm not going to kill these for anything. I am instead going to breed them, and then all of the baby cows is what we will harvest. Now, another autonomous activator, instead of shears, you fill this with wheat, and then it will constantly be it'll breeding them, get the hearts. And same idea, because they're in water, they're always jumping, and so the autonomous activator will always be hitting a different cow every time. Once they are bred, let me give you, I'm just going to spawn in some cows because it'll spawn in some babies and simulate breeding. I'm going to do just a couple. There we go. The cows, the baby cows, are different than the adult cows because their hitboxes are only 1 box tall, and so they are able to be taken from the water and either go to the left or the right. And there's, about a 50% chance of either way. So let me explain the right channel first. The cows remain here, and it's a block of lava. There's a sign in the back which is keeping the lava from flowing down. Lava won't enter a block that has a sign in it. And then there's a hopper that will collect the materials, and then there's a transfer node which will just transfer pipes to the chest. The things that I'm trying to collect are 1, leather. I want both raw beef and steak because different Pam's Harvest Craft recipes, food recipes, require different things. For instance, the beef Wellingtons that we've been eating, those are raw beef. So anyway, this cow here, this baby cow is going to stay here. And it takes like 20 minutes in Infinity Evolved for a baby cow to become an adult. But once he does, he's going to grow up, and instead of occupying 1 block, all of a sudden, zoop, he occupies 2 blocks and promptly burns to death. Once he burns, any animal that was on fire when they died drops the cooked version of their meat. And so the cooked steak, along with any leather, will come into the hopper and out here to the chest. Really simple. On the left, it's a very similar idea, but instead of when the cows come here and then they grow up, instead of burning, they suffocate, and so they drop the raw meat. And it, again, goes right into the chest. And there's where I got the raw beef. Sound muffler, of course. I really like this. Again, it's super simple. I need the autonomous activator to be powered and be given wheat every once in a while. The reason I'm not using a dispenser to throw out wheat to these guys is because the dispenser will throw out wheat even if there's no cow that is off cooldown for their breeding. And so with the autonomous activator, it will only breed if it's able to right-click on a cow, which is really cool. Let's see. Chickens are last. This is a farm that I shamelessly got off YouTube, and I want to show it off because I took ideas from it, but ultimately it's not the farm that I want, and there's a couple of reasons for it. Let me give you a real basic idea of what it does, though. I've just got it encased in glass so that you can see. But I've got chickens on top of a half slab on top of a hopper. What's cool is the hopper is still able to grab the eggs that the chickens drop through the half slab, and that's really important. And then we just got a hopper train, and it goes from this hopper down to this dispenser. Now, eggs come into this dispenser, and they shoot out into this block. All of this redstone is simply to make the dispenser shoot out anytime it gets an item in its inventory. Once it does, and I'll demonstrate it for you right now, let me just put eggs in here, it's going to throw the eggs into this block right here that also has a half slab. There's a 1 1/8 chance that an egg turns into a baby chicken. Now, the baby chickens, it's going to be the basic same principle as with the cows, where there is, in this case, water, but we could also say lava, where there is room for them to live while they're here, and lava will not, or any liquid will not flow into a block that has a half slab, so that's why it's not flowing down right now. But as soon as this baby chicken turns into a regular chicken, its half block hitbox is going to turn into a whole box hitbox, and it's going to promptly burn and die. And then its cooked meat and feathers are going to drop through the half slab into this hopper right here that faces into this chest. And you can see that I'm getting mostly eggs, but this is where the cooked chicken would come out of. If I didn't want cooked chicken, I could do the same exact thing, but instead of lava, it would be water. They would grow up, and then they would drown rather than be cooked, and so it would drop the raw chicken. You can also manipulate it so you just get eggs, but I won't explain that because I don't like the idea of having to click all of these different buttons for different things that I want. I would rather have a farm that gives me all 3 at once. And so what I came up with was this right here. And again, it's completely flat on the back. I'm sure that I could make this more compressed, but I value readability. So let me explain what's going on here. And I'm actually just gonna block some of this up because it's got 3 different parts. The first thing that we've got are our seed chickens, or our supplier chickens. I'm not interacting with these guys, I'm only taking their eggs. And then it's the eggs, or it's the chickens that spawn from the eggs that we're gonna be harvesting. But in this case, I'm actually just harvesting the eggs. So the chickens drop the eggs, it goes through the half slab to the hopper, and there's a hopper train just to the next hopper, which goes into this chest, which gets transferred into the piping system. And I've got the Just a Better Barrel mod here, and it's these are really cool where they will hold a lot of a single type of item, in our case, eggs. And so eggs will just constantly be put into this barrel. So easy enough to understand, I think. Let me cross these guys off now. Let's take a look at the left side. So I've got chickens right here. These are my seed chickens, and they go through the half slab to this hopper. And then the hopper, again, feeds this dispenser right here. That dispenser, once given eggs, I don't have any eggs, but it's the same idea. It'll blow out into this half slab, and the chickens are fine as long as they're babies. And the reason that you don't harvest baby chickens, by the way, is because they won't drop anything. It has to be adult chickens. But once they become adult chickens, they'll pop up, they'll promptly get burned, and then they'll drop through, their drops will drop through the hopper into the chest, which goes right back into our piping system, and voila, we've got our cooked chicken. Unsurprisingly, on the opposite side, we've got the same exact thing. We've got chickens that drop eggs that go into this hopper, go into the dispenser, which pop out here. Instead of burning these chickens, once they grow up into adult chickens, they actually just suffocate. And then they will drop their raw chicken and feathers into this hopper, which goes into the chest, and again, right out here to the raw chicken better barrel. I've got sound mufflers, of course, and if you're curious what this block is, it's just a redstone clock. The dispensers, they need a redstone pulse to fire, and it needs to be on and off. It can't just be a constant signal, otherwise it'll only fire once. So this redstone clock is from Extra Utilities, and you might be able to hear it if I'm really quiet. It's faint, but it gives a pretty rapid redstone pulse, so it's exactly what you need to fire the dispenser. So I'm pretty proud of this, and I've thought a couple of different ways to power the different farms that need the autonomous activator. Right here, I've got a windmill from Immersive Engineering, and I'm not quite able to make this yet, this dynamo, the kinetic dynamo that the windmill connects to. This requires steel. We don't have steel, but everything else we're able to make, and I've got an autonomous activator right here, and you can see, even though it's working, it uses a very low amount of power, and this thing is able to provide more than what this requires. It should be able to power, I think, like 20 autonomous activators with just one windmill. And so I might try to get one up sooner than later and then just connect it with these, the wires, connect it all to the same windmill. So there you have it. There are my farms. We're going to jump back into the server because we need to figure out how to put them all into an enclosed space and how we actually want to fit everything together. So I'll see you there. So we are back on the server, and let's go check out the final product. Of course, we've got our holding pen here, and here are our 4 farms. We've got our chicken farm, we've got our sheep farm, we've got our cow farm, and then in here, this is our pig farm, and it's just 4 hoppers surrounded by glass. And you might be noticing that they're all quite compact, and there's a reason for that. If I hit F9, this shows me the chunk borders, and I was able to fit everything inside one chunk. And that's important because I want to be able to chunk load this area so that the farms are always going, even if I'm not online. And with Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved, we've got a really cool way to do that. We don't need chunk loaders. We actually just need to go to this menu right here, Claimed Chunks, and it'll show a map of the area, and then I can click on these chunks and I can claim them. And if I want to, I can control click and it'll turn it red, and now it is chunk loaded for all the time. I don't need all of these. I actually just want the one. You can see I've already got it chunk loaded, but now these farms should run continuously. Let me hit F9 again to get rid of that. The next thing I want to show is the fact that I don't have all of these hoppers going into individual chests, so instead of when players come on and they gotta like find wheat, and they're like, or I don't know, whatever they're looking for. They like, where is that again? Instead, all of these pipes from the transfer nodes go into these Java barrels. And these Java barrels are really cool. They will hold 64 stacks of a single item. So you can only have, say, like steak in this barrel. And this is important because the transfer nodes, what they do, let me break this. And let me right click. So here I'm in the transfer node and I'm going to put an item into here, and it searches throughout the entire pipe network for an available storage spot. And so it's going, is it this pipe? Is it that pipe? Can I go to that pipe? No. Let me go back. Can I go up? No, there's no available storage space. This pipe, and then it'll see this pipe is connected to an egg. And if it's got an egg, it'll be like, all right, that's an available storage. If not, it'll keep looking and looking until you find one of these things. You may have noticed that I've also got a chest up here, and that's because, let's say a zombie spawns in the sheep farm, and then the sun comes out, it dies. The rotten flesh goes into that hopper. Ooh, I'm being pushed by the fans. And then all of a sudden the rotten flesh gets stuck in this little spot right here while the transfer node looks for an open storage. There is no better barrel for rotten flesh, and all of a sudden this transfer node gets stuck forever. It just continuously looks for a place, and then in the meantime nothing else is able to transfer through it. And so this is just kind of like a catch-all kind of a thing. These better barrels, I am actually going to want to upgrade them a little bit. Currently they can hold 64 stacks, but what I've got in my hand, and I've already got @Java up, cool. You can see you can actually make these storage upgrades. It increases the storage capacity by an additional 64 stacks, so it doubles it. The problem is you'll see that it also says slots used 1. In order to use a slot, I need to add slots, and that comes through these structural Mark I oak wood planks, and this provides a slot. And what's cool is if we go to the Mark IIs, this will also provide an additional 3 slots. Now the slots are used for a variety of things. You could do redstone upgrades, you could do hopper upgrades, that kind of a thing. What we are going to want to do is just this one storage upgrade for right now. I think having 128 stacks of anything is going to be good enough. But we also want these void upgrades. You can see that it uses 2 slots and deletes excess added items once the barrel is full. Let me sleep here. The reason that we want to delete those items once it's full is for the same reason as the zombie flesh. Let's say the hopper that provides eggs into my system, or let's say the eggs is full, and then this hopper is trying to find a place for eggs and it can't. So all of a sudden it gums up the works. So we'll get those, but unfortunately to create these void upgrades you need obsidian, and I don't have any tools that can mine obsidian yet. This, I think, only goes up to diamond. So the next thing I want to talk about is power, and you'll see I've got the 2 autonomous activators pretty close together, and we'll probably put the power something like right here, but of course we don't actually have that yet in our technology, and so once we get there I'll put it in. I think the last thing that we need to do is actually just move all of our animals into the pens. And we've got a couple of different ways to do that. Obviously, I am not going to do it with a lead. That would just be really frustrating. I could do safari nets. Unfortunately, they're one-time use, and they're like a little bit expensive. And so I think instead what we are going to do is the golden lasso. And this, the only expensive part about it is the Eye of Ender, which is just an ender pearl and a blaze powder. Normally, you'd have to go to the nether to get a blaze powder, but Thaumcraft adds in world generation. These cinder pearls are little plants that grow in the desert, and I went out and I harvested a couple of them, and you can see you can craft them into blaze powder. So now, I can, with my one of 2 ender pearls that I've had in this entire server, so a pretty expensive item for me right now. I'm able to craft this Eye of Ender. Cool. And let's see. And I've already got the other materials we need. It's just the gold nuggets and then string. And here is our golden lasso. Perfect. The lasso works by right-clicking on an animal, say that sheep, and you'll see that it disappeared. And it's faint, but you can see the effect on the lasso itself. It glows that purple. And then if you right-click on a square, it releases the sheep into the place that we want it. And best of all, it's reusable. So now, I'm just going to do the tedious job of moving all of these animals. Alright, that is all of our animals. And I'll have to do some more breeding off camera, especially with our chickens. We've only got 4 chickens in there. We need more like 10, 15 per block. So I also realized that I talked so much about these better barrels, but I never actually put on all of these upgrades that I had. So we're going to do that really quickly. And you got to shift right click and you'll see that they changed a little bit in their coloring. So we're adding the wooden upgrade right now. Now we're going to do the Mark II. This is the iron. And you need to have put the Mark I on before you can put the Mark II, otherwise you'll get an error message. And then finally, you'll see in the corner that it says I'm a Mark II, and I've got 3 upgrade slots available. And so what I've got in my hand is the storage capacity upgrade, and this is going to turn into a 2 when I right click because it's using one of the capacity slots. So we're going to put that in there, and everything is looking pretty good. Stuff coming through here. Alright guys, let's get our clipboard out. Mark off animal farms. Perfect. Okay, I'd play forever, but I am very hungry, and I think I'm going to go grill a porterhouse. In the meantime, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next episode.